Hey everybody, welcome back to the Frugal Filmmaker Q&A. That's the show where you send me a question and I try to answer it. But remember, it's just my opinion. If you'd like your question read in the show, please send me an email to frugalfilmmaker@gmail.com, or you can comment below, or you can send me a message on Twitter @frugalfilmmaker. I have to apologize, this Q&A is so late, but as the transition goes from here to Alaska, as well as a family vacation I was on, I apologize this is so late. Usually these shows are on Monday, that's when I like to have them out. And I plan, once they're getting settled in Alaska, to have them out very, very early on Monday morning, so you have something to watch as soon as you get out of bed, ideally. All right, so last week was Trivia Monday, and the question was, what was the name of the web series that I directed in 2009? And the correct answer was Midnyte, spelled M-I-D-N-Y-T-E, and the very first answer I got via email was the correct one. It was from Dick Wolf in the Netherlands, so congratulations, Dick. I will send you your Frugal Filmmaker short film idea deck in the mail as soon as it is done, printed, and on its way. So enjoy that. I got a lot of interesting responses from this question, which I found kind of fascinating. Some people said The Gap, which was a web series that I did work on, but I was actually the DP on a couple of episodes, and I was an actor in one of them. But that was not the one that I directed. And some people actually brought up Charles Strange and the Future Men, which was a screenplay that I wrote as an undergrad that I can't even remember talking about on this channel. But it was kind of cool that people brought that up. It's actually a show that I wrote as a web series. It's probably going to change into a screenplay, and maybe I can sell it someday. I don't know. It's kind of a 1940s X-Files. It's what that's about. But anyway, thanks everyone for sending in their answers to that question. And again, you can try again next month when we'll do the Trivia Monday, because there are no repeat winners, so everyone will get a chance who didn't get a chance to win again. My video last week was about recording audio directly into the Sony Vegas timeline, opposed to doing something like recording externally and then dropping it in. It's kind of an unnecessary step, but it might be something you might want to be aware of if you're just working within Vegas and you want to do something like narration or voiceovers or podcasting or something like that. This can be something you might not be aware of. Maybe you don't have an external recorder and you just want to record with Vegas itself, in which case I recommended some options on how to do that. So if you like Sony Vegas or you use it, check out that video. Speaking of Sony Vegas, our first question comes from email from Kevin Tretta, who says, why do you like Sony Vegas? I've always used Premiere and it's what I'm comfortable with. Well, I think, Kevin, you just said it all right there. I use Sony Vegas because that's what I'm comfortable with. And I think whatever editor you have access to, whether it's the built-in one on your computer like Windows Movie Maker or iMovie, or even something a little more advanced like Sony Movie Studio, which is what I recommend as an entry-level editor if you're using a PC, all the way up to things like, well, Vegas is probably more intermediate, Premiere, Final Cut, if you like that, Avid, at kind of the top of the food chain. It doesn't really matter. As long as the editor fulfills your needs and does what you want it to, you can pretty much use anything. When was the last time you watched a movie and you could spot the editor or name the editing software that they were using to edit that film? I would say zero in most cases. Sometimes you can tell what camera they're using, but you can never tell what editor they're using. And I think the only reason you would ever have to get a specific editor or train on a specific editor or buy a specific editor is if you wanted to be a professional editor and you wanted to train on a specific software, because that's what people were hiring for. I know a lot of people in companies use Adobe Premiere. That's probably a safe bet. A lot of people use Premiere. A lot of people use Avid in the professional world, but I'm not necessarily addressing the professional world. I'm talking about micro-budget filmmaking. And in that arena, you can use anything you have access to. When I actually started using Vegas, Premiere was an inferior product. So I bought Vegas and I used it and I liked it and I've kept using it and kept liking it. There's really no reason to change. Somebody called Vegas in the comments of my last video the choice of amateurs. And if you want to label it that way, that's fine. But you know what? It does everything that I needed to, and I've been editing videos on it for years, and I like it, so that's what I use. That's what I'm comfortable with, just as you pointed out, Kevin, that you use Premiere because you're comfortable with it. I think you should use whatever editor you're comfortable with, because that's what's going to serve you the best. Our next question comes from Twitter from Michael, who says, with little money, can one do edits and effects on a good used laptop, or should I go for a desktop? Well, for me, it pretty much comes down to, and I'm going to kind of skip over the fact whether you're using a used computer or a new computer. I don't think that matters as much, as long as the speed and capabilities is up to what you can do, because I think you can definitely get a used laptop or desktop to do what you want it to do, depending on how intensive your effects work is. If you're just doing straight editing, you don't even need that powerful of a machine unless you're editing 4K. But if you're just editing HD video, a normal speed machine should probably be fine. I try and always buy the fastest thing I can get with the most RAM and the largest hard drive. But if you're going for something that's going to help you specifically with effects, get the beefiest thing you can find. However, to me it comes down to portability, because you definitely pay for portability when you get a laptop. However, if you have to be portable, obviously you're going to choose a laptop. I've been very transitionary. I used to edit things at work and edit things at home, and I have to take my laptop from here to there, to library, wherever I could find internet access and do my editing there or uploading. So a laptop was absolutely crucial to me, and so that's what I've edited on probably for the past 10 years, because I had to be mobile. If If you don't have to be mobile, I think a desktop is a better investment because, again, you get more for your money. If you do go the used route, you might want to think about swapping out the hard drive for a new hard drive because hard drives will fail over time. If you get something that's 3 or 4 years old, it might be this close to failing. So you might want to swap it out for something fast like an SSD drive. You can get an SSD drive that's 500 gigabytes in size right now. That's about $130. That's a pretty inexpensive upgrade for a used computer, and it might serve you a lot longer. Well, it will serve you a lot longer because those hard drives, if they're used, will give out, and you don't want to have a project die on you while you're in the midst of an edit. That's horrible. Of course, you can make backups, right? So maybe that's not that big of a deal, but I would recommend getting a new hard drive and protecting yourself. Finally, we have a comment from last week's Q&A from Captain Catcheroo, who says, I would love to see that pie in the face in slow motion. Well, here you go, Captain. I don't know, maybe I need to just add a little more comedy or something. This is the kind of thing I've always wanted to do with a Q&A show because I think the Q&A show has a lot of potential to be something really funny and entertaining and interesting, but it's sort of a show that's always been developed on a time crunch. If you recall, in the old days when I did the Q&A show, I didn't even edit this show. There were no edits. I would just trim the front and back and shoot it in my car and upload it right from the card. What I've always wanted to do with the Q&A show was something like what David Letterman used to do with his old show, which is kind of take a stodgy format and inject kind of fun into it. I'm usually the only one doing this show, so I don't always have an extra set of hands to do things like the pie in the face. As some people suggested, oh, that'd be cool if you could do that every single week. And it would be cool and messy, but I don't have an extra set of hands. It's usually just me. So I'm glad you guys like that, and hopefully I can do more of that kind of unexpected stuff in the future. Again, i.e. old David Letterman style. But we'll see. That's all the questions we have for this week. If you'd like your question read on the show, please send me an email to frugalfilmmaker@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment below, or you can send me a message on Twitter @frugalfilmmaker. All right, so later in the week I should have that Shooting in the Rain episode done that I kind of talked about last week, but I didn't have all the parts done, and they should be done this week, and I'll give you that episode. And the following Monday I will actually be in Alaska, finally, and I will have a completely different look for this show and other shows that I will be doing that will address certain things like shooting in extreme weather, or working in an environment where nothing is prepared, like no actors, no crew, that kind of thing, as well as taking a laundry room actually, and turning it into a studio. So things like that I will hopefully be able to show you, and they will be interesting and give the channel kind of a new direction, I'm hoping. But until next week, I'd like to thank everyone for writing in, and thank you for watching.